Hello. Great to see everybody once again. I know it's been a long night, so I'm going to try to keep my comments as abbreviated and succinct as possible so we can get more questions in. I do want to say, though, nice digs here. The other few times I've been to good government, it's, obviously we're very fond of the space upstairs. Of course, it was, I think it was about a quarter this size. But it was always a packed house. And so now, I know, I wasn't able to make it to the ribbon cutting, but George from my office was there.
No, I'm not talking about. For a year, we had an office on the boulevard here that burnt to the ground.
Right.
So we had done it right. We got 3,000 square feet, and we lost it all. And thank God for Ocean Promenade that we're here.
Yeah. Great, great. Well, congratulations. And this club bounced back very quickly. I do want to thank your leaders, especially our district leader, Lou Simon, for doing that. Thank you very much to all the other officers as well. So I have always promised I'd be back regular and often, and in fact I have. And this is, once again, I have the privilege of talking with all of you. I think this is the first time, though, that I'm here, and you've already been listening to people for well over 2 hours. So I applaud you for sticking around. And I did want to have the opportunity to come by. It's been now more than 3 years that I've had the privilege of serving as city controller. Not an easy time to be chief financial officer of anything, let alone the great city of New York. But I start every day excited to have the opportunity to serve and help lead our city in the right direction. Obviously, it's a big year. 2013 represents, I think, a year of change, a change that I think will set the tone and direction of New York City as a whole for the next many years. And obviously, in the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy, that really devastated so many parts of the city, but in particular our community right here, where there are still many people struggling to rebuild their homes and indeed their lives. We've got to change the focus of city government. It's about making sure that government is actually helping people as opposed to always being a burden. And unfortunately, my experience with government has been that it has been too burdensome to people. Whether they be residents or small business owners, it's been very difficult for people to even deal with city government. All these taxes and fees left and right, and when you ask for help, no one's around to help. So that's something that we have to change, and we have to change it for the people here in the Rockaways, because I know it's been said many times already tonight, and I've been told about it for many years, but there just is not enough resource and attention being paid to our fellow New Yorkers right here in the Rockaways. I want to change that. I want to make sure that government is much more responsive. I want to answer all your questions, but let me just say that I this year am running for mayor. It's been an incredible privilege to serve. I'm running for mayor because I want to do more. Being in government or politics is not something that I ever imagined that I would ever be involved in. I grew up here in Queens almost my whole life, although I think some of you know that I'm an immigrant. I was born in Taiwan. Lou says that I've got a label on my neck that says made in Taiwan. But I had a chance to come to Queens at an early age and went to public schools here, kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. Growing up here as an immigrant, running for office was like the last thing that was ever on my mind. But I finished school, I went to college. I didn't major in politics or government or history like that. I got my degree in mathematical physics. And I spent many years in the private sector having what my mom would call a real job, working for my salary and having nothing to do with government or politics whatsoever. But in my hometown of Flushing, there were a lot of problems. And after spending 14 years as an actuary, I was a management consultant working for a company called PricewaterhouseCoopers. I decided to give something back, and I ran for office. And it was a tough election, but I got elected to the city council. I thought that would be for a few years. My wife, Jenny, was like, all right, do it for a few years. She wasn't all that crazy about me coming home really late at night, and I took my salary got cut in half because I didn't have any other income other than being a member of the city council. And now my colleagues at PwC are, they're all like, believe it or not, they're all in the $1 million range. And I've got my pay, which is fine because we don't spend a lot of money. But, Jenny thought that I'd do this for a few years. A few years turned into 8 years. 2009 came along, and people in Flushing said, you should run for a third term. I said, absolutely not. I was one of the most vocal opponents against this ridiculous upturning of democratic values in this city, the extension of term limits that essentially upended the will of the people. So I said, no, I'm not gonna run for a third term. But I figured I would use my professional background in finance, and I ran for city comptroller, and that was a tough election also. But I want to thank you for giving me the support. I got a huge margin here in the Rockaways, which is why I spent so much time in the Rockaways, because you elected me to office as city comptroller. And I've never forgotten that. And now, coming up on 4 years, I think it's time for me to move across the street. Having run this office of 750 professionals, looking at every part of city government, delving into every city agency, I know exactly how all of city government works, and I also know where it doesn't work. Where it doesn't work, where it's not responsive, where it needs to be beefed up. Over this administration, I've been very critical, and you know, Mayor Bloomberg and I, we dish it back and forth at each other. You know, I didn't get elected to office to give him a hard time, but I didn't get elected to office to give him a free ride either, and so I haven't held back. And of course, he hasn't held back either. You know, this last year and a half, the newspapers, which I think he has a huge amount of influence over, they've come after me. There's all sorts of, you know, innuendos and insinuations about my campaign fundraising. You know, my fundraising is like everybody else's. You know, I wish I didn't have to fundraise. I wish I was like Michael Bloomberg. But I'm several digits, about 9 digits short of being a Michael Bloomberg. So I've got to raise funds if I want to run for office. And I'm very proud of the high constraints that I've set for my own campaign. I'm the only candidate in this city that does not accept contributions from anybody doing business with the city of New York. Nobody else can say that. I'm the only comptroller in history who does not accept campaign contributions from Wall Street. Everybody else has. But yet, I'm the only one who has all these questions about my fundraising. I'm very proud of my fundraising. It's hard work asking people for money, and I'm happy that people from all over the city have contributed to my campaign to the point where I'm finished. Thank goodness. Thank goodness in New York City there's a spending limit that you can't go, unless you use your own money, and I'm not going to be able to use my own money. So there's a spending limit over which we can't go, and so I've raised enough money for that. So thank goodness I'm done with the fundraising. But the point here is that, you know, I believe that I have a lot to offer to the city of New York. I'm different from all the other candidates. I'm an immigrant. More importantly, I have spent most of my life having nothing to do with politics or government. So I come to government with a fresh eye. When I was elected to the city council, I didn't think very much of anybody in government. I felt that people were just, you know, they were not doing very much. But I have come to learn that in government you can create a great deal of positive change, as long as you don't accept the status quo. And I've never accepted the status quo. When Mayor Bloomberg says, you know, you can't do this or you can't do that, I've questioned it every step of the way. Some of the policies that I've enacted have gone right against his grain. For example, I said we need to borrow money now in order to get the parks fixed, get the schools built, get the roads and bridges improved, and put people to work. I put together a capital acceleration plan that actually put 8,000 people to work, got schools, roads and bridges built quicker, parks improved, and it wound up costing less money, because the point was I wanted to take advantage of super low interest rates right now. Borrowing money now as opposed to 4 or 5 years later actually saves money for our taxpayers and gets all those other things, jobs and the infrastructure in place. That's something that we need to do right here in the Rockaways, because this is a place, this is a hidden jewel, and I don't understand why. You know, Lou and I have known for each other for almost 20 years now. Norm was there. You know, I got involved in the Rockaways as the chairperson of the Queens Civic Congress Transportation Committee. And these two guys were always after me about that Rockaway line. And I've never, and every time I see them, they say, John, what's going on with the Rockaway line? Well, I have never forgotten that. And I think that in this day and age, we need to invest as much as we can in transportation infrastructure. Transportation infrastructure, it's not just about planes, trains, and automobiles and ferries. It's about getting people access to jobs, giving them economic opportunities and otherwise, and connecting the whole city as a whole, one city, not Manhattan and everybody else, not Manhattan, everybody else, and then people who are really far out. It's got to be one city. And so that is an asset that I can't say that that's something that should be reactivated tomorrow or next year. It's going to take a huge amount of resource to reactivate it. But it's a lot less resource than it would take to build lines from scratch. And we're still contemplating building lines from scratch